SLT ස්පීඩ් අප් සවාරිය සමගින් සද්දන්ත වාසි රැල්ලක්. අලුත් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සබඳතා සඳහා පළමු මාස දෙක පුරා ඩේටා ඩබල්. ස්පීඩ් අප් with SLT.
Making headlines on First at 9. Bellicose pledges. President Maithripala Sirisena promises to table a controversial proposal in Geneva and stands firm in not moving for premature elections. He learned from me. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa hears the president's move to not hold elections ahead of time. Sounding the alarm. Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa calls the 20th Amendment to the Constitution a danger that all in Parliament should avert. Indirect crime. The police lament the exponential rate of traffic accidents.
So if 3,000 accidents are reported annually, the cost is 3 billion.
Rain of fire. Russian and Syrian warplanes pound Syria's Idlib after failed ceasefire talks. A very good evening to all our viewers who joined us here on First at 9 at Derana 24/7, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chan. Now moving on to a top story tonight. President Maithripala Sirisena affirms that elections will not be held in any time prior to its due date. Addressing a Central Committee meeting in Nivitagala today, the head of state added that he hopes to table a new and controversial proposal in Geneva.
The Nivitagala SLFP Central Working Committee meeting was held today under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena.
I will be addressing the United Nations on the 24th of this month, particularly on war crimes allegations against our war heroes and human rights issues. I will also address questions that are raised on reconciliation programs conducted by the government. I hope to present a new proposal to them. It will be controversial, but I believe we will be able to address challenges that we face at present through consultations. The Flowerbud Party and the UNP are overconfident. If the SLPP and UNP think that they can form a government by themselves, it is a myth. I wish to say that none of these parties can form a government without our help. Today, some people talk about the presidential election. I heard a senior minister announcing that presidential elections will be held soon. No one has the right to talk about the presidential election as there is a set date for it, and that can only be decided by me. I also wish to say that elections will not be held prior to its due date. I curtail the power of the president significantly. In the next election, the most important role will be played by the Prime Minister and not the President. Therefore, what should be debated is not who will become the next President, but the Prime Minister as per the 19th Amendment to the Constitution.
Meanwhile, newly appointed resident coordinator for the United Nations in Sri Lanka, Hannah Singer, called on President Maithripala Sirisena at the President's residence yesterday. President Sirisena thanked the UN resident coordinator for the support extended over a long period of time for the development programs of Sri Lanka. Singer assured the President that she would explore the possibility of widening the assistance while continuing ongoing programs.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe points the finger at media, alleging that it glorified the joint opposition's protest Janabalaya Kolumbata worked off recently despite it being a failure. Addressing a party members' meeting in Puttlam, the Premier added that even though the joint opposition rallied around to topple the government, the desired result did not materialise and the government continues to be in power.
A UNP party members' meeting was held in Puttlam today under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
The media blew the protest out of proportion as a force that would topple the government, chasing away the President and the Prime Minister. They booked 25 to 30 rooms in the Hotel Shangri-La for the first group of would-be ministers to stay after they took oath. They came to overthrow the President and claim power, but could not do a thing, and we still remain in power. The media is harsh on us. They never say a word to them, and they never commented on their futile protest. Newspapers published on Sunday labelled it as the most successful protest.
තමුන්නාසලා දකින්න නැති පහුගිය දවස්වල
Once Basil Rajapaksa brought a crowd to Golface Green and requested his brother to give him the presidential candidacy and that he would prove himself in the role. Next in line was Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who created organisations such as Vietmanga. He then sought the presidential candidacy. Nama Rajapaksa then panicked and created a mess with the recent protest, and now the situation is worse than before. 1 or 2 died during the rally in Golface, while there were reports of deaths this time around as well.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa insists that the government's political agenda is at play behind the establishment of the Special High Court. The former president delved into the matter at an event held in Mirigama this morning.
People who were appointed to develop this country have cast aside this role and are only taking revenge. They have established a new high court and the cases taken up target one particular faction. They have taken away the independence of the judiciary and they cannot do anything. For the first time in the country's history, it is not the Chief Justice who is giving the final verdict. He is being advised by ministers at night. This has never happened before.
Meanwhile, the former president looked into the well-being of MP Johnston Fernando, who is placed in remand custody at the Kegol prison this evening. Former President Rajapaksa was also asked about the president's comments on the presidential election not being held prior to its due date.
He said this because I made a mistake of holding elections 2 years ahead of time. I believe he is smart for planning to hold on to his position until the end of his term.
Minister of Agriculture Mahinda Amaraveera is confident that President Maithripala Sirisena will contest and win the next presidential election, which he says will be held in December next year. The minister made this remark while responding to questions raised by journalists following an event in Haputale.
I said this earlier that they cannot topple the government in such a manner. A government can be toppled through an election. The presidential election will be held in December next year and the general election will be held in another couple of years. They have no other way to topple the government and they should accept that reality. It ended without a result in vain. How can you say that? Do you see any signs of fear? They said that millions will be brought to streets, but that did not manifest. President Maithripala Sirisena is our next presidential candidate. He is the leader who won the trust of all ethnicities and the globe. When he contests, we expect the support from everyone. We shouldn't fight. The joint opposition is from the SLFP and the UPFA. If they support us, that would be great. So the leader of the SLFP will continue to be the leader of this country.
Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa sounds an alarm over the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, calling it a detrimental amendment for the country. Addressing the event worked off by the organisation earlier in Ratnapura today, the former Defence Secretary pointed out that the proposed amendment poses a threat to national security and called on all in Parliament to ensure it is not passed in Parliament.
We should comprehensively understand the government's intentions and also make others around us aware of what we know. They have been talking about the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. This is detrimental to the country. Our parliamentarians should be well aware of this and must prevent it from being passed in Parliament. It is a very dangerous amendment. We can resurrect an economy from ruins, but a threat to national security or a compromise to the country's sovereignty through constitutional amendment should never be attempted. These are dangerous acts and should not be allowed at any cost. People of this country must be aware of this. Especially the joint opposition in particular should take all possible measures to prevent it from getting the blessings of the legislature.
Traffic-related accidents come at a high cost to both property and life, with around 3,000 deaths reported each year. In a bid to mitigate the situation, Sri Lanka police are aiming to take necessary measures to reduce the rate of the country's traffic-related mishaps by 10% come next year, while characterising them as an indirect crime. Inspector General of Police Pooja Jayasundara elaborated on the topic while addressing the event yesterday, with DIG Ajit Rohana placing the annual cost of the government is forced to shoulder owing to traffic-related accidents at a staggering 3 billion rupees.
The Sri Lanka Police, together with the World Health Organization, launched a project yesterday which aims to detect road accidents and traffic congestion more efficiently, enabling a proactive approach to curtail motor accidents.
If we take the statistics, it is sad to say that 7 to 8 persons are killed on roads regularly in accidents. And in addition to that, 22 persons are seriously injured daily. Yesterday, 103 accidents have been reported. Out of that, 9 persons have been killed. The annual statistics, 3,000 persons are killed in road traffic accidents. If we calculate the cost for one death, for the investigation, for the inquest, for the post-mortem, for the court procedure, it is 1 million Sri Lankan rupees. So if 3,000 accidents are reported annually, the cost is 3 billion. So the best remedy is that we need to identify the reasons for accidents. After launching this project, we have selected 4 police divisions: Nugegoda, Mount Lavinia, Kalaniya and Gampaha. 50 tablets have been allocated for them, and apart from that, 5 computers, and it is connected to our VPN system. Once an accident happens, immediately we can get all this data and we can analyze it and we can get the reasons for those accidents, and accordingly we can take action. So therefore this is very fruitful, productive program.
World Health Organization have taken the serious consideration about the traffic. Why? It is connected to the health again. It's sort of indirect murders, indirect crimes. We have come to that level today. Such a seriousness has come to this topic. Get the 2019 accidents 10% decrease. That's our task. To the level of the President, Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, ministers concerned, they all have to be convinced this is the traffic plan.
Let's take a look at more stories making news across Sri Lanka.
A contract agreement for around $82.64 million for the supply of 160 passenger coaches from India under concessional financing was signed in Colombo between the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation and Rights Limited, a Government of India enterprise under Indian Railways in Colombo, yesterday. The passenger coaches will be custom-made in India to suit the requirements of Sri Lanka Railways. The current contract agreement will be covered under a line of credit agreement of $318 million for procurement of railway rolling stock and upgradation of rail tracks, signed between Exim Bank of India and Sri Lankan government in June last year. A Sri Lankan man wanted for drug trafficking was arrested in Bangkok 4 years after he first fled to Thailand. Sali Pereira Vivalarachige was apprehended in the Chongnonsi area on Thursday. He was wanted on an Interpol red notice for colluding with a major drug trafficking gang in Sri Lanka. Officers from the Thailand's Immigration Bureau, Tourist Police Bureau, Patrol and Special Operations Division and other agencies had been tracking the suspect's whereabouts following a request by Sri Lankan authorities. Sri Lanka police arrested 3,593 suspects, including drunk drivers, in a special island-wide operation during the early hours of today. Meanwhile, 6,542 cases were filed for traffic offences during the police operation. Some 17,155 police personnel had participated in the operation carried out on the instructions of the IGP. A Sri Lankan national was apprehended at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayake while attempting to smuggle 31 gold biscuits into the country. The 36-year-old resident of Hatton had arrived from Chennai at 8:30 a.m. this morning. The 20.8 million rupees worth gold biscuits, weighing 3,191 kilograms, had been concealed in his undergarments and shoes.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Deepfake videos, which is considered the most powerful false news weapon in history, is creating concern because as technology continues to advance, we may soon face totally convincing videos showing events that never happened, created so effectively that even experts will have trouble proving they are fakes. Speaking to First at 9, experts point out that in the years to come, tools used to create deepfake will be perfected through artificial intelligence, and governments will have to ensure that technology is smart enough to detect the menace will have to be developed. Recently, a video of former US President Barack Obama surfaced on the internet. Here the president had some choice words for the current president Donald Trump.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. How about this? Simply, President Trump is a total and complete
Mark Zuckerberg insisted at Facebook's annual developer conference earlier this year that his company will never be unprepared again for meddling and disinformation efforts like those run by Russian trolls on its platform during the run-up to the 2016 elections, and stories which we all witnessed here in Sri Lanka that led to the government banning social media for a short period of time. Yet the social media giant and its competitors may still be ill-equipped for their next great challenge. Fake videos that look so real, you'd believe former President Obama really did make such a statement.
Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele.
This new menace is called deepfakes. So what is deepfakes? It is an artificial intelligence-based human image synthesis technique. It is used to combine and superimpose existing images and videos onto source images or videos. Deepfakes may be used to create fake celebrity pornographic videos or revenge porn. Deepfake pornography surfaced on the internet in 2017, particularly on social site called Reddit, following which websites took measures to ban deepfake pornography, including Reddit and Twitter. Deepfakes can be used to create fake news and malicious hoaxes like the video you just saw of President Obama's. This technology is at its infancy. It was discovered about a year ago, but as you guessed it, it is taking every social media site by storm.
Now today, some of these videos we know but they are fake. There are sometimes some of the images that are made because of they are blurred, some of them are not perfect. So therefore we can actually identify by another year or two that these tools are going to be perfect. So obviously the government or any other institutions have to basically have their technology, basically the tools to figure it out whether they are fake or not.
All is not lost, at least now. The US Defense Department is already preparing itself for the fight against deepfakes. According to MIT Technology Review, the development of technology to catch deepfakes is currently underway. Through the media forensics program run by the US Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, researchers have already built some of the tools to expose these fake AI creations. The media forensics program was actually originally set up to automate existing forensic tools. However, its mission changed due to the concern over the rise of deepfakes. The project's deepfake mission was announced earlier this year. It is a good thing that a country like the United States is doing their part to curb this. But what can we do? What can our government do to ensure that people in Sri Lanka do not fall victim to this?
Most governments throughout the world rely on is good journalistic practices, because governments can't be in the business of deciding, of using counter measures for things that media do. So the government in Sri Lanka, including some government affiliated think tanks, have begun to think about this question and look at the options. We have to figure out how to educate our people to be more critical consumers of news.
Economic advisor to the Minister of Finance, Deshal Dimel, says that if Sri Lanka is to move towards export diversification, the country must move away from final product-based trade. Experts speaking at a forum on free trade agreements organized by the young professionals of United National Party also pointed out that the country must gear towards embracing the fourth industrial revolution as the world moves towards technological advancement.
Now, if you look at the way that Sri Lanka's exports are structured, it is pretty much exactly the same today as it was 3 decades ago. At present, about 45% of our exports are from apparel, sector, about 15% is from tea. So 60% of our total exports are from two products. That's the exact same ratio that we had in 1990. Today, about 60% of our exports go in combination to the European Union and the United States. Again, exactly the same story that we had in 1990. So we have a problem of limited diversification of our export basket and limited diversification of our export market. So it's clear that we need to realign our strategy to get greater exposure into particularly the regions such as the ASEAN region, East Asia in particular. So for Sri Lanka's future, if we want to go into new products, if we want to go into new kind of exports, new kind of technology and so on, it's essential that we move away from our current model of these end product based trade. We have to go into this dynamic value chain based trading structures. Now at present we are outside of the ASEAN network, but we have now initially gone into have a FTA with Singapore. We are in the process. We have just had our first round of negotiations with Thailand, and we are looking to build that into other negotiations with other members of the ASEAN region as well.
Got to have consultations with business right through the process, and also you've got to interact with business when you start to implement that FTA, right? So there's to be a high level of consultation both ways, and there has to be a lot of business support, particularly for small and medium enterprises, to understand how to use FTA as well. The rules of origin is one aspect, but there are other benefits that might arise for business. Another point is we've got to have trade adjustment programs for those losing sectors, right? And we've got to have retraining programs for those sectors as well, right? Because there are these costs, and we've got to be very clear that the costs may exist. Now, when it comes to the trade adjustment costs, something we haven't talked about today is it's not just due to trade. There is also technological change. We are in the midst of what they call the fourth industrial revolution. There is the confluence of robotics, artificial intelligence, biotech, and the digital economy. And some people argue that that is a greater force for losing jobs than opening up to trade and investment. Yeah? So this whole tech coupled with opening up to trade is something we've got to bear in mind.
Billionaire Jack Ma is reportedly stepping down from his position as executive chairman of Alibaba, the $420 billion e-commerce empire he co-founded in 1999. Speaking to New York Times, Ma said that although he will remain on the board, he will retire on Monday, his 54th birthday, and pursue educational philanthropy. Alibaba is one of the largest companies in China and among the most important online retail platforms in the world. It has also invested money and resources in technologies like artificial intelligence and robotics. Russian and Syrian warplanes pounded towns in Syria's opposition-held Idlib province a day after summit of the presidents of Turkey, Iran and Russia failed to agree on a ceasefire that would forestall a Russian-backed offensive. Meanwhile, America's top general today said he was involved in routine dialogue with the White House about military options should Syria ignore US warnings against using chemical weapons in an expected assault on the enclave of Idlib. Russian warplanes have launched fresh strikes on the Syrian province of Idlib, the last major rebel stronghold in the country, as talks in Tehran failed to stop an impending military offensive there. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the raids targeted rebel-held positions in Idlib's southwest. Although Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan pushed for a ceasefire yesterday at a trilateral meeting between Russia, Iran and Turkey, Russian President Vladimir Putin rejected the calls for truce in Idlib. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has insisted upon his Russian and Iranian counterparts that Idlib shouldn't be turned into a bloodbath. However, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has argued that fighting terrorism in Idlib was an unavoidable part of the mission to restore peace and stability to Syria. Meanwhile, America's top general, Marine General Joseph Dunford, said no decision had been made by the United States to employ military force in response to a future chemical attack in Syria. But routine dialogue continues with the president to drop options in the event chemical weapons are used. The United Nations expressed fear that a full-scale offensive could cause a humanitarian catastrophe involving tens of thousands of civilians. Despite a nervous beginning, Sri Lanka overcame Hong Kong 55-46 in the semi-final of the 11th Asian Netball Championship 2018 to secure a place in the final scheduled for tomorrow at the OCBC Arena in Singapore. Sri Lanka remains unbeaten in the tournament and will face Asia's top seed, Singapore.
Similar to the previous games in the tournament, Sri Lanka got off to a relatively slow start as Hong Kong kicked off the scoring.
Because he's at the goal shooter side for Sri Lanka.
However, the Lankans slowly began to make the court feel their presence, leading by 4 points at half-time.
What a shame. 34 seconds left. Crystal again.
Hong Kong kept their skills alive but could not stop Sri Lanka from scoring as they ended the match handing a 55-46 victory to Sri Lanka.
To Sri Lanka, they go through to the final here.
On to tennis, two-time US Open title holder Novak Djokovic defeated Kei Nishikori in straight sets to reach the US Open final. A wounded world number one Rafael Nadal, however, suffered an exit facing Juan Martin Del Potro in the other semi-final. Del Potro will clash Djokovic in the finale.
Novak Djokovic will face Juan Martin Del Potro for the US Open title after defeating Kei Nishikori 6-3, 6-4, 6-2 in their semi-final in New York yesterday. A weary and wounded world number one Rafael Nadal retired from his US Open semi-final while trailing Juan Martin Del Potro 7-6, 6-2 yesterday, sending the Argentine back to the Flushing Meadows final for the first time since his 2019 triumph.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Time for you to get the latest from the world of entertainment with our segment 70 Seconds of Entertainment.
US rapper Mac Miller, aged 26, died yesterday of a suspected drug overdose. The musician was pronounced dead at 11:51 a.m. at his Studio City, California. The cause of death is yet to be determined, but a source tells People the rapper had gone into cardiac arrest after appearing to suffer a drug overdose. Burt Reynolds, whose good looks and charm made him one of Hollywood's most popular actors, has died on Thursday morning at the Jupiter Medical Center in Florida at age 82. Meghan Markle was named the best-dressed woman of 2018 by People magazine in a rare royal accolade by the celebrity publication. Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, topped the People's annual list ahead of Hollywood actresses including Kate Blanchett, Sandra Bullock and Amal Clooney, as well as Kim Kardashian. The Academy announced in a statement that it is dropping the widely criticized popular film category it introduced less than a month ago for the 2019 awards, saying it has determined the award merits further study. Like many Hollywood movie stars, Julia Roberts has gone from the big screen to the small screen, and she held the world premiere of her first ever television series, Homecoming, at the Toronto International Film Festival.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
Well, on a programming note, our entertainment program Showbiz Tonight, hosted by Mahesh Johnny, will air tomorrow at 9:35 right here on Derana 24/7. Make sure you tune on to that. Now, take a look at your weather forecast for tomorrow. Temperatures are to vary between 19 and 34 degrees Celsius, with the highest of 34 expected in Batticaloa. Low pressure zone will develop in the areas of Kandy, Jaffna and Manna and will gradually disappear. Showers or thundershowers will occur in most parts of the island except for Jaffna, Manna, Colombo and Galle, as well as Mathura. Let's now take a look at your city-by-city forecast. And that's a wrap for tonight. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.